A trust basically is a legal document where you put your assets in the trust and they're passed down to your beneficiaries, which can be your children, which can be charities, which can be, your nieces and your nephews. It just depends on who you want your beneficiaries to be. So, and the greatest thing about having a trust, it does not go through probate court. So most people say, okay, well, at least I have a will. Well, the thing about a will is it can go through probate court, especially if it is contested by another family member. So somebody in your family, they have a will. Well, all of a sudden, cousin Johnny comes about, and cousin Johnny said, no, 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 no. Those things are supposed to be given to me. He told me on his deathbed. Well, now you have to have a court, you have to hire lawyers, all these different situations that you have to have. Now, if he had a trust, what is in the trust, how she or she said that they want their assets to be in the trust, that is what's going to happen. A person called a trustee is going to carry out those wishes for the beneficiaries. So it's just a trust is a way to make sure that your assets are passed down correctly to the people that you want it to be passed down to.
Now that's well said. And why, is this a great tool for, single mothers, to build
Mm.
generational wealth for their kids?
Oh, this is an amazing tool for mothers in general. Yeah, you're right, especially single mothers, because sometimes people, especially like single mothers, they just say, okay, well, at least I have a will. But if they're single and they really don't have anyone else around them in terms of like a male or something of that nature, then sometimes it can get messy. So a single mother would want to have a trust so they can make sure that their assets go directly to their children and they can pass down generational wealth. As a mother, the worst feeling that you have is that your children are not taken care of if you're not here. So, in order to avoid that, pass it down in a trust to make sure, that your kids are taken care of, especially as a single mother.
And that's well said. And I know with trust, oftentimes when you hear people talking about trust, it's almost like a wealthy thing. So how can someone who may not be wealthy start thinking about estate planning? Or when should
Mm.
you start thinking about estate planning, if that should be a better question?
Yes, good question. Good question. Well, you really want to start thinking about estate planning as soon as possible, right? As soon as you have children. There's a couple of things that you want to do. You want to make sure that you have life insurance on yourself. You can put that in the trust as well, right? Um, and estate planning is so crucial because unfortunately, we don't know how long we have, right, in this earth. But we want to make sure that our kids and our family are protected, right? So you have to think of it like this. And I know this might seem morbid, but it's the truth. When your family is already grieving if something does happen, now they have to think about money and assets and all those kind of things. Make it easier for them that now that they know that these things are in a trust, you have it allocated properly so that this process isn't already more hurtful. So if there's a mother out there and they're just like, okay, well, why do I even care? That's the reason why you care, because you care about your children, you care about your family. And if she wants to just get started, with estate planning, the first thing she should do is, first of all, I have a checklist. I'm not trying to do this as a plug, but I wish somebody helped me when I was creating my trust. If you go to my Instagram page, Prosper with Regina, I have a checklist and it gets you thinking about all the things that you need for your trust, right? Because when you talk to these lawyers, they might not explain these things to you, right? They're just there to file the document, right? They're going to get that information and file the document. When you think about, well, who's going to take care of my kids, called who's going to take care of my kids if something happens? Who's my power of attorney? Who's my healthcare power of attorney? Who's going to be my trustee? You want to be thinking about all these things. So if I was a mother just getting started, just hearing about trust, the first thing I would do is get the worksheet, right? Get the information, and then I will contact a lawyer. But first, you want to know exactly what it is. And that's why I'm here. That's what I do. I explain all day, every day. What is trust and why is it important to you?
That's well said. And, so anyone can get a trust, for this woman, they can get a trust as soon as they have a kid, or there's a certain amount that is makes sense for them, a certain kind of network for the network to get to a certain point for
Well,
them to get a trust.
oh, that's a good question. Well, okay, so a trust is made to put assets in the trust. Okay. So it really just depends. Like if you're left I don't know, your uncle left you some land, right? And you want to pass it down to your children. Put that in the trust. Or if you purchase some land and you want to put that in the trust for your kids, you can do that as well. So when I got my trust, I didn't have any assets, but I knew that I was going to be putting assets into the trust, right? And so it's really about your mindset, and it's really about where you think you're going, in your wealth journey. I think that all women should have trust, right? All women should, because if you're on this wealth journey, you're going to have assets, right? If you know what a trust is, you know what an asset is. And so I would say create a trust, you know, as soon as you can. Now, if you have a baby, right, and you want to put life insurance on your life and put it in the trust for your baby, you can do that right away. You can open up a trust once the the baby is born and put life in make sure you have a policy and put that in the trust for your child. It really just depends on your financial journey. But I just kind of gave you two examples of what a person would be thinking about why they would create a trust. Is because they're going to have assets to put in that trust.
That's well
So the
said.
sooner you get the assets, then the sooner that you're going to put it in a trust.
No, that's well said. And I know that what you call it with a trust, there's different types of trust. Do you have recommendation for any married for women in general, or it depends on their situation?
Well, okay, so the main two types of trust are irrevocable and revocable. Okay. So revocable trust you can change, and irrevocable trust you cannot. Those are like the main two types. Now there are plenty of different trusts because of your situation. So, for instance, if you have a special needs child, there's a special needs trust. If you have life insurance policies, there's a life insurance irrevocable trust. If you want to give some of your money to your assets to charity, there's a charitable trust. So yes, it does depend on the situation. However, most of them are categorized irrevocable or revocable. So, an example of an irrevocable trust would be a life insurance trust. So, you want to make sure that whatever you put in that irrevocable trust, you don't want to change, because you can't change it unless you have to go through the courts, and that's like a long system. But revocable trust, you can change. I have a revocable trust because, as your kids grow, things change, and you might want to put more assets in the trust. It just depends. Or you might want to change your trustee, right? So that's a revocable trust. So those are the two main types of trust that usually people will get.
That's well said. And that's well said. And I know with trust, like you mentioned, the different benefits of pass down wealth. But I also understand it's important to have a designated trustee, as you mentioned, to help, do your service for you. So how important is that, and
Yeah.
how would you recommend someone to go about choosing a trustee?
Okay. Well, that's a good question too. So trustee, trust, right? So you might want to trust the person that you are appointing as your trustee. It is super, super, super important to make sure that this person, not only do you trust, they are well versed in the knowledge of estate planning. Okay. And one thing about does not always have to be a person. It can be a bank, it can be a CPA firm, because sometimes when you come into wealth, are you the only person that knows about kind of wealth in your family? You might not, it's not that you're not trying to, trying to discriminate against your family, but if they don't have the financial literacy to understand what your wishes are, then they probably are not going to do it properly. So yes, you can appoint a family member. Of course, you want to trust, whoever you trust with your assets, but just keep in mind that you can also do a bank, or you can do a CPA firm, because they're going to take the emotions out of it. Whatever you put it for your assets, they're just going to carry it out, right? There is no, oh my gosh, or opinion with it. It is, this is what it is, and I want you to carry it out. So it just depends. But yeah, those are the main three people: CPA firm, a bank, or a family, a person that you appoint. Doesn't have to be a family member, just a person that you appointed.